I call to order the May 9th, 2022 Henderson County Board of Public Education Board meeting. Would all rise for the presentation of colors, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Color guard, hold, post, colors. Ready, cut. Ready, pace. Present, arms.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, arms. Ready, pace. Ready, move. Forward, cut.
You may be seated. That was North Henderson High School Air Force JROTC with Master Sergeant Michael Jensen and Colonel Eric Runquist, the Air Force JROTC. First up is going to be our agenda approval. I'll take the motion when someone's ready.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda is approved. First up, program highlight, Dr. John Bryant, Muddy Sneakers.
Thank you, Mr. Craven and members of the board. It really is a pleasure to be able to share with you a program that is super exciting for our kids, for our staff, and for our school system. And when we talk about the importance of engaging student learning, not just inside the classroom, but outside, Muddy Sneakers is literally the gold standard for that work in our school system. And so we are proud to be joined by our very own Peggy Marshall, Executive Director of the Henderson County Education Foundation, and the work that the foundation does to support that effort across our school system. But we're also proud to be joined by two of the leaders from the Muddy Sneakers program here in Western North Carolina, Mr. Ryan Olson and Nikki Jones, who are going to be sharing a little bit with you about the joy of learning outside. And so we say welcome to Ryan and Nikki and Peggy as well. Thanks. Yes, ma'am. Oh,
Welcome.
and I didn't realize you're going to get a folder. So they, exactly. Now we're in high cotton. Yeah, exactly. It's exciting.
Thank you, Peggy. Well, to the board, thank you so much for giving us your time today. We couldn't be more excited to be here on the verge of our 15th year in operation in Western North Carolina. Some of you may be more familiar than others with the Muddy Sneakers program. We're going to try to quickly give you a few kind of critical nuggets and pieces of information to walk away today from. But I wanted to first say that we founded this program back in 2007, and our first two counties we ever served were Transylvania County and Henderson County. And today, it's a pleasure to be back here in partnership with Dr. Bryant, Peggy, Shannon, and others to give you a few moments to get to know this program a little bit better. And 15 years ago, when we were founded kind of in the wake of The Last Child in the Woods being published by Richard Louv. That was kind of a seminal text at the time that was pointing to the damaging effects we were seeing from kids losing a connection to nature. And it was not just about science aptitude, which is a lot of the work we do. It was also a lot about social, emotional learning, leadership, connection to adults, et cetera, et cetera. So when we were founded, again, with Henderson and Transylvania County board members at the helm, we decided we wanted to work with public schools. It was critical to us to reach the widest cross-section of every community we were going to serve, and to do that during the school day, if at all possible. We knew that was a hard road ahead, and we knew that one of the best ways we could be in service is in an area that most schools feel some need, which is in science instruction, particularly in the 5th grade, kind of a magic age for kids when they're also being tested on via an EOG on that aptitude at the end of the year. So before I share any more about what the program looks like, I think the best way to present this to you all is to have you guys an opportunity to watch a short video just done in the last couple years that captures the students and the teachers in the field.
Awesome.
That's the next slide, and it should play within the slide. Oh, next one, please.
I took this group, it was their first day. I took them into the woods that was right by their schoolyard. And this girl came up to me and she was like, Miss Annie, I've never been in the forest before, and being in the forest makes me kind of nervous. And I said, that's totally normal. You know, not many things make you feel as small as these trees do. I said, I promise if you just breathe through it and just kind of take it one minute at a time, you'll feel so much better in a couple minutes. And she came up to me 5 or 10 minutes later and she said, Miss Annie, I feel at home in the forest and I feel like myself.
Muddy Sneakers is like a time like where boys and girls can like go in the woods and explore and have fun and learn about nature.
Being outside, like kids usually like. You get to see a bunch of things that you don't get to see when you're in a classroom at school.
I think like every school should do it.
It's really fun.
Our lessons are aligned with the 5th grade standard courses study for science, so we're teaching pretty much the same material that they're learning in the classroom. The difference is everything we do is experiential and hands-on to a large degree.
My kids absolutely love Muddy Sneakers expeditions. You can really tell because our attendance is always up on expedition days.
I think it brings us together as a class because we have this common background, we have this common experience that we can pull from throughout lessons.
I knew it was working when I heard my children say to their parents, "Can you take me out here?" Muddy Sneakers exposes our children to the local natural areas, not too far away.
Some of my parents have gone as chaperones and they didn't know these places existed. So for both my staff, my students, and my parents, it's been a great learning experience.
I think it's the most beautiful thing to see my kids fall in love with nature.
There's so many moments when that spark, you see that spark in them. It's in all of them.
The kids are experiencing nature, they're touching it, they're smelling it, they're feeling it, they're even tasting it at times. And that's not something you can get in the classroom. I think it's very valuable and worth every penny.
Every year we ask, is this something we want to continue? And there is a resounding yes.
I mean, I don't even think it comes to our discussion anymore that this is not a field trip that we won't do. The collaboration and the care and the heart that they give is mind-blowing.
Well, thanks for taking a minute to get to see that. Hopefully, if you're not as familiar with the program now, you might have a little bit of a feel for what it looks like when we're out there instructing in small groups on nearby lands close to these schools. I mean, that is a key part of what makes Muddy Sneakers so unique. So I will pass it over to Nikki Jones. Nikki is our Western North Carolina Program Director. She oversees all of our programming in this region of the state, and she is the one working most closely with your district and the growing number of schools.
Thank you for having us. I think you probably saw in the video some of the joy, so I don't have to tell you much about that. That's innate to getting children outside What's less apparent in the film is the comprehensive nature of the partnership with Muddy Sneakers. So over the years, we've added a lot to the partnership, wanting to connect as deeply as we can through the classroom and to offer as much support to teachers as is possible. We found that's just as meaningful as reaching students directly. And so you'll see on the list here the components of the program. The highlights are, of course, those 6 outdoor expeditions that you saw. We also include a year-round curriculum for use in the classroom. It was developed during COVID when remote instruction threw us all for a little bit of a spin, but we've changed it and grown it, and we've got a lot of great feedback from teachers about what it's like to have a Muddy Sneakers style, experiential science and cross-curricular set of lessons that they can use in the classroom or on their schoolyard on all the days that we're not there. We also reach them now through virtual instruction, which allows us to do things that we can't do in the field, such as, have a possum on hand. We don't always carry those around in our backpacks in the woods. You're so welcome. Yeah, it's good for our staff as well. So in addition to virtual lessons, curriculum, and the expeditions that reach students directly in all those ways, we also offer end-of-grade support, review at the end of the year, and one-on-one support for partner teachers all year long. They can call us when they have science questions at any time. We bring that science expertise, and through this partnership that lasts throughout the year, we're regularly infusing that science expertise, new curriculum, pedagogy ideas, lots of energy and fresh mentorship to students over and over in the course of the year. We can go to the next slide. So in addition to that school year programming, which we know is really crucial to developing students' identities as self-directed learners, connection to nature, sense of place. Who would want to grow up in a place like Henderson County and not have a sense of identity connected to the natural resources of this area, right? We have also expanded in the last year through district demand to plan an expansion to include all the public schools, the 5th grades in Henderson County. We've been ramping them up. We're on track to serve all 5th graders in the county by the 23-24 school year. We've been really excited to work with a district that so understands the value of these partnerships that they wanted to bring it to all the 5th graders. And beginning last year, we expanded to a 12-month partnership with Henderson County. Through serving the 5th graders during the school year, we've served over 4,000 Henderson County students since we started partnering with you. Started with a few schools, now of course it's growing. And this summer we are on track to serve an additional 500 students through new partnerships, operating a STEM camp through the Education Foundation, participating in summer learning for rising 3rd through 5th graders, so they get that little taste of experiential outdoor joy in their summer learning experiences. It's always fun to see those kids again when they get to 5th grade and recognize us. And this year we'll be working with the Summer Bridge program with rising 6th and 9th graders, many of whom are our alumni, have had Muddy Sneakers, and we get to continue being part of their growth as science learners and in their career exploration, all tied to home. I'm going to turn things back over to Ryan.
Yeah, just really quickly, I know you all need to move on to other things, but I just want to let you know, Muddy Sneakers has always been built on the back of partnerships. So schools at either the school level or the district level committing to a portion of the funding and Muddy Sneakers raising the remainder. That model works well, and at the same time, when we're trying to move into an entire district in order to serve as many students as we would possibly be serving in Henderson County, which would become our largest district to date in North Carolina, which is really exciting. We're only going to get there through partnership. So having Shannon and Peggy here today is meaningful for a lot of reasons. One, we've known both of them for years, and Peggy happened to be over at Hillendale when I showed up one day and said, listen, we just can't take on another school this year. This is many years ago. And we were totally won over by the time we left that school that day. Hillendale was signed up. But it was, it really speaks to just this long-standing relationship and a willingness with the foundation to work with us to say, contractually, the schools are committing, or the district's committing to about 25% of what the price is to program. But in reality, we have a bigger number to raise here, and there's no reason Henderson County shouldn't be able to support this whole program within Henderson County. And so we're excited to grow our work in that way, and thankful for the partnerships of the district and the foundation to do that work together. I want to quickly let you all know that when I'm in Raleigh, when I'm getting to talk to folks on a state level about a district that I kind of want to hold up and model, it is currently Henderson County. Not saying that just because I'm standing here today. I mean that in all earnestness, because the district has made a commitment. And that commitment is one of not only to phase in and make sure every child gets this experience, but again, to do it in partnership. We're so grateful for the time here today, and please know we would happily make ourselves available to answer further questions. Peggy knows a lot too from firsthand experience, as does Shannon, and they can answer as well as Dr. Bryant, but thank you for your time.
Awesome, thank you.
And if I could just echo a couple of the things you heard from Ryan and from Nikki, and again, the enthusiasm that they bring to our students and to our school communities is really second to none. And we have made a commitment to creating opportunity for every child. We want every fifth grade student to be able to do that. So when they talk about that scalability, that's something that we're really pumped about. You know, serving 8 schools right now, adding 2 more in the next year, adding 3 more beyond that. The Education Foundation's investment in the programming opportunity. You know, we are always talking about total child, and after these last couple of years, there may not be anything more important than getting off of these devices, getting off of the screen time and being connected to among the most beautiful parts of our country, especially to learn that stewardship and that connectivity and that alignment to our content standards. It brings science standards to life. Truly in that form. And so we're so grateful to the leadership of Muddy Sneakers. We're super excited about the investment from the Education Foundation and Dr. Marlowe and Dr. Wilson's leadership in this, and really just love to showcase you. You think about the excitement that we talked about with safety around water, serving every second grader. When you think about Muddy Sneakers and complementing our outdoor education program for every one of our students, really creating that connectivity, it's a pretty special partnership. So we're proud to partner with you as well, and we're really grateful that you guys shared a little bit with us today.
I want to say 2 things. One, my niece and nephew came from Portland, Oregon, and attended Muddy Sneakers during the summer in Transylvania, a camp. And then I was a chaperone at Atkinson one time. And my child went there for, 5 years, but it's really cool back there. I mean, there are trails, there's a big stream running through. We found salamanders and crawdads and fish and tiny little tadpoles. And I mean, the kids are just so excited. So I encourage us all to, if you want to do something for a day outside, be a chaperone. It was really cool.
That invitation is always open. It really is. Our instructors are used to it at this point. They're just, who are the people shadowing for the day?
I'd like to say one thing. Years ago, maybe 25 years ago, we had a program called Outdoor Education, started by Dr. Keg Wheeler. This program is very similar, but years ago, that program then was very, very popular within our Henderson County school system, and especially the 5th grade, because my wife was a 5th grade teacher for 30-some odd years in the same school, and they love that program. And it's very, very similar to what you're offering with Muddy Sneakers. Thank you.
And those, as you said, Mr. Bridges, you're exactly right. Outdoor Ed still goes on in our school system right now, and it's a complementary opportunity as a way of really engaging and making sure that we do that work so well for our kids. So thanks for bringing that up. Appreciate that.
We hear about it from Henderson County students when they're out with us as well. That outdoor education, I think, is really focused on those outdoor skills, right? And how to do things like build a fire, and they'll bring it up. We learned how to build a fire. Are we going to build a fire today? Not precisely, but it's fun to see their like maker selves and their very physical selves like dovetail with their curious selves, and it's really lovely. Yeah, and we do encourage you. Please come out and join us. We welcome all adults.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate it.
Next on our agenda today is going to be recognitions. Dr. John Bryant.
Thank you, Mr. Craven, and again, members of the board. I have to say this is one of the recognitions that I take maybe the most pride in our entire school system. Each and every year in our May board meeting, this board has made it a priority to recognize the young men and women who have chosen service with one of our U.S. Armed Forces. And when we talk about what makes our country great, one of the key tenets of that is individuals choosing that service to our nation. And so it's with a great deal of pride that I look forward to recognizing those that were able to join us here today. And so in just a minute, what I'm going to be doing is calling their names, asking them to come down and stand and line up in the front facing the audience for a moment. We'll call all the names on the list because some were not able to join us, but we want those to be on the record, showing our appreciation. And then once we have all these young people up at the front, it'll certainly be our honor to recognize the choice that they've made to serve our country. And so with that in mind, I'm going to begin with students who have chosen enlistment from East Henderson High School. First, Yancey Ballard, United States Marine Corps. Also from East Henderson, Brandon Langford, United States Army. And finally from East Henderson, Alejandra Vera Torres, United States Army National Guard. From Hendersonville High School, Brendan Poeta, United States Air Force. I know Brendan is here, so Brendan's going to start our line for us. Thank you. Also from Hendersonville High School, Joel Reyes Lopez, United States Marine Corps. From North Henderson High School, Aaron Allred, United States Marine Corps. Joshua Ennis, United States Army. Kevin Hernandez Ventura, United States Air Force. Jimena Lopez, United States Army. Logan Smithers, United States Air Force. Wait while Logan comes down. Destiny Smithers, United States Army. Kara Sullivan, United States Air Force. Elijah Williams, United States Air Force. And from West Henderson High School, Richard Allison, United States Air Force. Sebastian Brown, United States Marine Corps. Damian Brevard, United States Army National Guard. Mason Compton, United States Army. Nassim Ford, United States Air Force. Anna Gilbert, United States Air Force. Hunter Lindsay, United States Air Force. Matthew Miller, United States Army. And Samuel Musser, United States Marine Corps. Again, these young men and women have chosen to serve our great nation. Let's honor them here today, please. Mr. Craven, in light of recognitions, I just want to mention from this board, the board is aware of it. We will have the opportunity to recognize Mr. Robert Rolfe at our June 13th board meeting, but it was recently shared here publicly when that information was not embargoed anymore in early May. But Mr. Robert Rolfe is the Child Nutrition Director of the Year for the nation. So our school system right now can brag. We have the Region 8 Teacher of the Year, we have the Region 8 Principal of the Year, and we have the Child Nutrition Director of the entire United States. And so we look forward to celebrating Mr. Rolfe in June. Pretty special stuff going on.
Pretty awesome. All right, board chair observations. I really have none except for I hope you guys are enjoying the new chairs. Finally replace the seats. But that's my only observation today. Board member observations?
I just have, this is probably my favorite board meeting, when we get to recognize those individuals in our school system that are going on to be in the service. And it's very humbling, and we are very, very proud of you guys for taking that on and serving our country. Much luck to you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Ms. Gates?
Yeah, I just want to add to what Ms. Holt said. As you were walking back to your seats, in my head, I was just saying, keep them safe.
All right, next we're gonna have, see if there's any public input on the 22-23 proposed budget before we go on to the public comment. Is there anybody here specifically to talk about our budget publicly? If not, we will move on to public comments. First up, Chris Walters. Welcome, sir. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Chris Walters. I want to talk to you about the Constitution and teaching history. And I want to present with you an idea, and I'll come back next month and fill in the details of that, but I'll give you this idea and explain a little bit about it. The central idea here related to history is, in the Constitution, is this. An unlevel playing field was built into the constitutional foundations of the country. An unlevel playing field was built into the constitutional foundations of the country. What does that mean? At the very beginning, it was built with biases to a certain group of people and biases against another group of people. So it was built into the biases of the people who wrote the Constitution were white, heterosexual men, okay? Built biased in favor of them. Built in bias against, obviously, enslaved people, enslaved Africans, women, gays, Native Americans, Indians, Mexicans, Chinese, and gays. So at the very beginning, certain people had protection of the Constitution, the full force and weight of the federal government, newly formed federal government. And other people not only did not have those protections, but they were on the bottom at the mercy of the full weight and force of that newly created Constitution. If you think of we talk about a level playing field, it would be like this. It was a level playing field for most white people, most white males, heterosexual males. If you think of the election of 1800, Jefferson versus Adams, John Adams, it was a pretty level playing field there. The unlevel playing field is like this. You would have the white males here, and down here, you would have everyone else struggling uphill. Okay, we call these the heroic people right here, right? These are the unheroic people, and those are the people we actually don't want to talk about when we talk about short-circuiting our teaching of history. But we need a full history. If you don't have a full, complete history, it's an inaccurate and misleading history. So thanks for your time. I can't stay for the whole meeting because I have to go to a dentist appointment. But thanks for your time, and I'll be back next month to sort of fill in the details. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Next up, Tay Brown. Welcome, Mr. Brown.
What Brown?
Mr. Brown.
Oh, hey everyone, Tay Brown, as he said. Thanks for hearing me today. You know, it's great to take another breath. Lots of great recognitions today too, but I won't stand up here too long. I just also wanted to throw a recognition onto the great list that we've already had, and it might be a little preemptive, but I just wanted to recognize Dr. John Bryant as he heads out for retirement next month, and I know he has one more board meeting, but I just wanted to show some love and say some kind words, so thanks. You know, I got to meet Dr. Bryant when I transitioned to East Henderson High School for middle school, and it was a rough transition in middle school over to Flat Rock when I became an Eagle, but it was a reaffirming, he was an affirmation when I got to East as a student government classroom president, just to walk in and be greeted with a smile, a handshake, and a side hug. And so stepping onto East Campus, it meant so much to me. And it's the small things I believe that count the most. And it propelled me later into Chapel Hill, first generation college student, honors, AP classes, even to invest now into the community as I once taught as well too. So I just wanted to say thanks for that. You know, I had the chance to meet with my biological father about 6 years ago. And so when I think about the qualities and characteristics of a man, it was tough growing up, but you exemplify so many of those great things as a role model. And so I just wanted to let you know, thank you for allowing me to see a little bit more of you and helping me become the man that I am today through all the service and all the work that you've done with Henderson County Public Schools and in the high school. And you know, there's a bunch of different types of leaders. We could categorize them, but I definitely know without a doubt that Dr. Bryant, he leads by example. I believe we can all agree on that as well too. It's not his words, it's not what he does on the day in and day out, but it's that smile, it's that handshake, it's that willingness to open his door and an open door policy after going through meetings and meetings and meeting with crises all over the county, and he still manages to make 15 minutes for me, even though I just didn't schedule it. So I really appreciate that, just that leadership example. And lastly, you know, he's got charisma, he's got skills, he's got the gab, he's got it all, right? And so it was like, what doesn't he have at this point? And so I just wanted to publicly recognize that from myself, you know, and from the students of Henderson County Public School, past, present, and future. You will be missed. And it's been an honor being able to get to know you and see all the great things that you've done. And it's going to be hard to fill those shoes, whether they be muddy or not, when you leave. So I just wanted to say thanks. And I really appreciate you, and much love and blessings on your new endeavor. Thank you.
So, Dr. Bryant, have you changed your mind?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Brown. Next up is Mr. Joe Elliott. Good afternoon and welcome, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I addressed the critical race theory issue at this meeting last month. Since then, the quantity and the volume of misinformation has expanded exponentially. I find it interesting that the rhetoric is voiced almost exclusively by adults. Yet those among us most affected by the debate are teenagers and young adults whose lives will be affected for many decades by the decisions we adults make about what they learn of our collective history, are very seldom consulted about their opinions. Let me assure you that young people do have opinions about race and racism. In fact, they most often display wisdom and candor that is not always present in our adult discourse. So is there good data that captures the thoughts of middle school and high school students on race and racism? Well, there is an organization in Kentucky called the Kentucky Student Voice Team. The team is comprised of 26 middle school and high school students from across the state who are assisted by adult counselors. The organization has a 10-year history that is characterized by a constantly changing mix of student participants. During the middle 2 weeks of December in 2021, the team surveyed students across Kentucky about race and racism. Over 10,000 students responded from 114 of the 120 Kentucky districts. The students, the students shared their take on a series of statements such as the following. I quote, "Despite what is taught or not taught in the classroom, Kentucky students are talking about race and ethnicity." I urge you to go to their website and access this study. It is entitled Race to Learn. The team carefully analyzes and summarizes the data from the survey and selects comments from students who are taking the time to share their personal insights. I'll end by quoting two of the summary observations from the team. These are students. First, quote, "Race and ethnicity are a part of our identity, and when we are not able to have conversations about race or to be properly educated on race in our schools, which are supposed to be a safe place for such discussions, then how can we teach ourselves to accept these differences and new ideas? If we don't get taught about these lessons in school, then how do schools expect us to learn to have these conversations ourselves?" Second quote, "We hear a lot of arguments about teaching uncomfortable topics like racism, but what I took away from this survey was the real discomfort comes from not teaching the subjects and setting up students for a more difficult adult life when they continue to feel out of place asking questions. This is wisdom coming out of the mouths of babes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up is Ms. Indiana Jackson. Welcome.
Hey, I assumed my son was going to go first. So I was going to.
Want me to go first? Or he can go first. Mr. Donnie Black.
All right.
Mom put you on the spot there.
Okay. All right. Well, first off, thank you for having me. What I came here to talk about was like the school lunch. Yeah, it's a bit not so edible. one thing that I want to talk about is like the mac and cheese and ham. That's one of the things that they give us. It's a bit questionable. The cheese turns red after a few minutes for some reason. I can't exactly figure out why. And then sometimes they give us chicken and rice. The chicken's not so bad, but the rice doesn't really look like grits. It doesn't look real enough to look like grits. And yeah, I feel like we could do a lot better than that. If we have enough money to get better microphones and chairs, then we could probably get better food. Yeah, I can't really think of much else to say. Well, thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Ms. Cindy Jackson.
Yeah, I did explain to him how, if he states problems, he also has to state the solutions. But, so some options, I usually speak about critical race theory. I'm not really going to touch on that too much today. See y'all next month with that. But I just want to back my son up. He talks about the school lunches every day, and I said about the pizza and milk, and I think like milk is like one of the only options that they have at school. If there was, a fruit stand that had maybe, apples, bananas, oranges, and, sometimes mango or, things that, that you can peel so it can be more sanitary. Or you had a veggie section that had, just celery, carrots, so just some other options for kids who are vegan or kids who just don't think the food is edible, or don't want mac and cheese that turns red. And so that, just if, I don't know if you guys are thinking about what the kids are eating at school, but if you could just start paying more attention to that. Tay said something, I'm just really backing up what a lot of people said today. Tay said something about Dr. Bryant. Dr. Bryant is the only person from the school board who has met with us, myself and Crystal Cawley, she's back there, about not specifically critical race theory, but he has talked with us about the need for inclusion and diversity in the school system. And so you're right, you'll take 15 minutes out of your day, and it's so busy, and that hasn't gone unnoticed, and we appreciate that. Hate that you're retiring, so maybe you will reconsider that. There's a young man that's going to the Air Force. I didn't get your name, but you, if you could just know that your decision right now is so inspiring. The Air Force is a hard branch to be able to join, and my son, both his grandfathers were in the U.S. Air Force, and the impact that you can have going forward on younger Black kids, especially from this community, we don't, they don't see that a lot. It's so many kids I see now that are taking the wrong road that I wish would take a road like that. And so, I mean, you have an opportunity to be a great example coming back to this community and just being that example that these young Black kids need to see. So that's a great thing that you're doing. Do great, stay alive, stay safe, come back and help the youth. I really don't have anything else to say. Y'all have a good day.
Ms. Jackson. Retiring, huh? Yeah, we'll keep that to ourselves. Okay. All right. Next, we're going to have the consent agenda. We've got a couple of resolutions we'll pull out. I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Clear a second. Mr. Bridges, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Maybe we need to talk to Mr. Rolfe about red mac and cheese, National.
I was thinking I'm glad he wasn't here today.
Right. Anyway, sorry, that came up, but.
We are all advocates of fresh fruit and vegetables. So, yes, sir.
Yeah. All right, National School Nurse Day resolution. Would anybody like to read that for us, please? Thank you, Ms. Case.
Resolution honoring the observance of National School Nurse Day, May 11th, 2022. Whereas students are the future, and by investing in them today, we are ensuring our world for tomorrow. And whereas families deserve to feel confident that their children will be cared for when they are at school. And whereas all students have a right to have their physical and mental health needs safely met while in the school setting. And whereas school nurses have served a critical role in improving public health and ensuring students' academic success for more than 100 years. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has emphasized the essential role school nurses play in student health and academic access. Whereas school nurses act as a liaison to the school community, families, and healthcare providers on behalf of children's health by promoting wellness and improving health outcomes for our nation's children. And whereas school nurses are members of the school-based education and mental health teams. And whereas school nurses understand the link between health and learning and are in a position to make a positive difference for children every day. Therefore, be it resolved that the Henderson County Board of Public Education celebrates and acknowledges the accomplishments of school nurses everywhere and their effort to meet the needs of today's students and improve the delivery of health care in our schools. We offer gratitude for the school nurses who contribute to our local communities by helping students stay healthy in school and ready to learn, and keeping parents and guardians at work, not just on this National School Nurse Day, but every opportunity throughout the year. Now, therefore, be it further resolved that the Henderson County Board of Public Education encourages all members of our community to join with it in personally expressing appreciation to our school nurses for their dedication and devotion to their work. Adopted this 11th day of May 2022. And I don't think we can say enough to school nurses in Henderson County, what they have done for our students and our teachers and our schools during COVID and hopefully afterwards. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
If I could add just a little bit to that one, not just the amen that Ms. Case just shared, but also that we will be recognizing all of our school nurses on behalf of the Board of Education and the school system on Wednesday of this week. We'll be welcoming them right down here where we'll be saying a personal thank you to each of them. We've got some very special gifts that we'd like to share with them. And again, they have been absolute stalwarts of the health and care and the safety of our students through this period of time, and so we're so grateful to them.
All right, next is a resolution for mental health. Is there anyone that would like to read that? Ms. Caskey, thank you.
You think mental health and you thought of me.
I did not. I was just looking.
Resolution honoring the observance of Mental Health Awareness Month, May 2022. Whereas Mental Health Awareness Month is part of a nationwide effort to raise awareness of mental health illnesses, reduce the stigma and discrimination surrounding mental health, and to increase awareness of tools and resources to prevent such challenges and promote recovery. And whereas mental health is essential to everyone's overall health, safety, and well-being, you're good. And whereas all Americans experience times of difficulty and stress in their lives, and whereas mental illnesses are real and prevalent in our nation, state, and community, and nearly 1 in 5 Americans live with, it says Americans lives, okay, with a mental health condition. And whereas mental health has been identified as a priority in Henderson County's 2021 Community Health Assessment and by Henderson County's Partnership for Health. And whereas those living with mental health conditions are family, friends, classmates, neighbors, and coworkers, and addressing the complex mental health needs of our citizens and families today is fundamental to the future of Henderson County. And whereas prevention is an effective way to reduce the burden of mental illnesses, and whereas there is a strong body of research that supports specific tools that all Americans can use to better handle challenges and protect their health and well-being, And whereas with early and effective treatment, those individuals with mental health can recover and lead full productive lives. And whereas each business, school, government agency, healthcare provider, organization, and citizen shares the burden of mental illnesses and has a responsibility to promote mental wellness and support prevention efforts. Now therefore be it resolved by the Henderson County Board of Public Education that May 2022 be observed in Henderson County Public Schools as Mental Health Awareness Month, adopted this 9th day of May 2022.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kasky.
Mr. Craven, if I could mention just with that particular resolution in mind, this board should aware that there are a number of partner agencies who all are seeking to serve together to address the mental health of our students and our school communities and our greater region and state together. We're glad to be joined by Mr. Milton Butterworth, who's with Party UNC Healthcare as part of one of those partner agencies, our Director of Student Services, Mr. Matt Grubmeyer, and resolutions of this kind have actually been endorsed and approved by over 7 of our local municipalities and governments, including our Board of Commissioners. Again, all of us together saying this work matters and this work has to be done together. And so we appreciate Mr. Butterworth taking the time tonight. Thank you, Mr. Grubmeyer, for your leadership in that space on behalf of our school system, and knowing that this Board of Education is doing what so many others are doing and saying we're going to work together on this.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Moving on, we have no old business this month, but we have some new business. And the first one is going to be the current face covering guidance and policy. We're going to combine that with return to learn.
Yes, sir.
All right, Dr. Bryant.
All right, thank you, Mr. Craven and members of the board. Again, the slide deck you're familiar with. I'm going to focus on 2 slides specifically, and that's the third slide that we all know, where we look at the 7-day rolling average per 100,000, and you can see we saw that plateau, really the plateau we were looking for, which was the bottom of the valley. We wanted to see it at the bottom of the valley, and we've seen it continue to stay there. We've seen a slight uptick in our cases, but we continue to share that information across our schools and our school community. You can see here our COVID tracker as well. This is the alert system that just kind of shows positivity, helps you have some sense of case rate per 100,000 in new admissions based on hospitalizations and otherwise. Our COVID dashboard continues to be available to the public for those who are interested in it. Our current operations are such that face coverings are optional in all environments and in all settings, and that includes group transportation settings. There have been no updates to the North Carolina Strong Schools Toolkit since February 18th of 2022. You can see that noted there. And specifically again, because I like to remind this board and the public, why are we talking about this again, is Senate Bill 654 requires it. It requires through the remainder of this school year that you take a vote at least once a month on whether or not to amend your current policy. Final slide, of course, it shows you that we continue to be responsive to any trend data or any changes in that. It is our recommendation at this time that our current guidance be maintained. Be glad to answer any questions from the board.
Any questions for Dr. Brown on this? I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the continuation of the current face covering guidance as presented. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It passes. Moving on.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Mr. Bernie Sosha, 2022-23 county appropriation request.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
You may recall the board workshop we had a few weeks ago. And what we have tonight is a sort of the summarized version of that presentation. We've had no requested changes or further discussion items about that. It is to present to the county commissioners on the 15th, the continuation budget with the addition of what we call the uncontrollables, which include the changes to the state salary and benefit system, as well as the large piece of changing the salaries from $13 to $15 an hour, that being the $390,000 piece that you're about to see right there. And we have the addition of the $310,000 to increase the local supplement, that additional 0.25%. Remember, we did the 0.25% last year with the hope that we would do another 0.25% this year. And that is what that comes down to bring our request to the commissioners with the addition of the capital outlay of $1.5 million to $32,878,000. And if you have discussion items or questions that you want to have about what we presented, I'd be glad to take them now.
And just as a follow-up to what Mr. Socius just mentioned, we have to provide that notification again to the Board of Commissioners by that date on the 15th. That is part of our statutory responsibility. Then I will be participating on behalf of the school system in the Board of Commissioners budget workshop at their mid-month meeting, where they essentially evaluate the requests from not just the school system, the community college, but all of the various agencies that the county seeks to fund. So the approval of this request today would ultimately be what's transmitted on our behalf, and then it would be part of the Board of Commissioners discussion based on their determinations for funding. The attached couple of slides are simply a revisitation of the capital outlay, the MRTS and otherwise, based on the board's revised requests. And again, Mr. Sochar, I would be glad to answer any questions.
So we're asking for 1.4 million more dollars this year than we did last year.
That's correct.
But 1.14 of that, we have no choice, but I mean, we're not asking it for anything new. It's state retirement, insurance, state salary schedules, and what the charter schools need. And then the increase to minimum wage from 13 to 15 an hour. So we can't control that. The only thing that we can control asking for more of is the 0.25% increase to local supplement, which is an additional $310,000.
Yes, ma'am, you have stated that exactly correctly. Bullet 1 and Bullet 2 are uncontrolled. Those are the costs increased to our operations by nothing that we did or said, right? State budget increases and otherwise insurance, retirement, salary schedules. The only discretionary request here that's being made on behalf of the school system to the Board of Commissioners is the $310,000. That's correct.
The only reason why I bring that up is I saw in the paper that they're wanting to cut, they're wanting to find some cuts, and they're wanting to cut the tax rate some.
That's because they're making over $10 million on top of what they're already making.
Right, and I just wanted to, I don't think we need to pull the 310 for the local supplement at all. But, our budget, other than that, really has nothing that we can take out of it that is not uncontrolled.
Well, and you mentioned the 0.25 increase. What's the story behind that? Didn't we already mention that earlier in the year or
Yes.
last year?
Yes, sir, we did.
So it's not like it's new, but can you speak of that?
It's not new, you're exactly right. We shared with the Board of Commissioners as well as this board that our original intent was a 0.5% increase. Based on the state budget approvals, this board was only able to approve 0.25%. So when I shared, this similar slide was presented to the Board of Commissioners back in January of this current year that said, this is a goal for our board. Our board said we want to do this. We were uncertain at that time what the true impact was going to be of what we call the uncontrollables, but we presented this very slide to them at that time, really trying to estimate what those would be and reminded them that that would be a priority for us. And so that the Board of Commissioners has seen this, and we've shared it with them previously, and certainly the board's approval at the board workshop would be what we would bring to them again.
So this 1.45 increase is actually zero new.
It really is, it's 1.1 in additional money that is uncontrollable.
That we
by us.
can't have anything to do with.
That's correct.
And the last part,
300,000, yes, sir. 300,000 that one might
we've been
consider
saying
as
that.
discretionary, yes, sir.
But we've been saying that for
2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, we said last year when we wanted to raise it 0.5%, but we raised it 0.25% and said we would do another.
And said we were going to do another one.
Yeah.
Right, and I think, again, it's helpful, I appreciate you bringing up that point. The local supplement, remember, is exactly that. It is a local supplement paid at the county level to individual school systems to make us the most competitive that we can be, and also to make sure that we've got the most valuable resource available to the people that we're recruiting. So, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Case.
That local supplement is something that's really important. I know of I think she's a first-year teacher in Henderson County who is leaving teaching because she got a job. She's a math teacher. She got a job in a company, $100,000 a year, and she can work from home. So us attracting good teachers, these supplements are really important because they're a drop in the bucket to 100,000, but they're important to our teachers.
You're exactly right. We simply cannot create enough opportunity. And when we talk about connecting local supplement to cost of living in Henderson County, cost of housing in Henderson County, it can be a differentiating factor. So every 0.25% matters.
That probably won't even touch the gas price increases. I'm not suggesting, I hope you don't think I was suggesting to us not do it. I'm definitely supportive of this.
So with that in mind, this slide essentially shows you what the request would be. Continuation is that current. 1.4 would be the increase. 1.5 capital is what we receive currently. And capital outlay itself, that $4.9 million, is essentially a rough estimate of the 3 cents on the tax rate. We actually know that that 3 cents is a little bit more valuable right now, so it's a little bit more than that based on, as Ms. Holt said, and what the commissioners have been deliberating over. But it is representative of 3 cents of whatever the tax rate is.
Any other questions about any of the other capital outlay projects or the MRTS, the maintenance, repair, technology, security monies that we've allocated and talked about ad nauseum at our other budget meetings? All right, if not, I will. Do you have anything else to add, Mr. Socia? Okay, I'll take a motion when someone's ready.
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the 2022 and 2023 county appropriation request.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's approved. Take it down the street. All right, next is Dr. Wendy Fry, the alternate accountability model options for 22-23. Alternative, excuse me.
Hi, good afternoon. Come seeking your approval this evening on a couple of requests, and we will go ahead and start with the authorization to submit federal program applications. I believe that was the next one on the agenda, correct? Okay. All right, so each year, staff on instructional services team work diligently and collaboratively to put together grant requests for these funds that we are eligible to receive. We stretch these dollars as far as they will go. Some of the things that we're able to purchase through these funds are iReady, elementary and secondary instructional coaches, pre-K to kindergarten transitions, transitional services, school personnel, school-specific materials. We have this wonderful presenter who comes to work with our beginning teachers each year on classroom management. These funds pay for that opportunity. We have a program called GLAD, Project GLAD. It's an acronym that stands for Guided Language Acquisition Design and Support for Teachers, and academic support for our immigrant students in their first 3 years of U.S. education. Also, these funds go to support well-rounded education, safe and healthy students, and we are required to request your permission to apply for these funds. I can't imagine doing this thing we call school without these dollars. So with your permission, our staff would like to request these funds once again on behalf of our students.
Do you have the total amount of these grants?
I have an amount for each fund source. I can share those with.
Okay. And I was curious, how long have we been getting these?
Well, at least 30 years since I've been a part of this. Yes, these funds are federal funds that pass through the state and are designated by these title descriptions. And we're recipients based on different accountability measures. In many parts, the number of free and reduced lunch students that we have, also the ESL counts that we're able to do each year. Yes, as long as I can remember.
So let me ask this, are our dollars down based upon the last 2 years? Because I know there's a lot of parents that aren't filing for free and reduced lunch because they're getting free lunch.
We are very concerned about that, yes, and continue to ask principals to make a push to get this information collected in any way that they can, make it as easy as possible for families, but definitely a concern.
I think that's a really good point to kind of navigate, depending on what the USDA decides to do. When this board discussed about universal eligibility for meal service, that can be a demotivating factor for that particular metric which drives funding. And so it's going to have to be something that the board and the administration keep in mind moving forward, especially based on a USDA determination, because that could have a significant impact moving forward. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions for Dr. Fry? I'll take a motion.
Make the motion that I move that Henderson County Board of Public Education grant staff the authorization to submit federal funding applications as outlined in the request.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It's approved.
Thank you so much. Next item seek your approval on is the alternate accountability model for school year 22-23. This is something we have brought to you for several years now. A summary of this request is that DPI allows us to choose the accountability option that we wish to use at our alternative school, the Career Academy. We have 3 different options, and the one we continue to choose is option B, the alternative school's progress model. And the reason we prefer it is because it rewards student persistence, weighs heavily on growth, and we believe that's the appropriate model to use at the Career Academy, and are seeking your approval to continue to use that model.
When we were audited, did they accept this model and they understood that that was the best way going forward for our Career Academy?
Yes, sir. We have another review of the Career Academy coming up later this week, and we'll continue to get feedback, but this is one that is recognized by the state, yes.
Questions?
How long has this program been going on?
The Career Academy? Well, I was here when we worked on Balfour, and I want to say Dr. Revis helped me out 15 to 20 years ago.
Yeah, well, actually, I would say, yeah, when we moved we moved and shut down the old Tuck City School and opened Balfour. That's when we started doing more of a Career Academy concept.
So it just changed the names, basically.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
All right, I will take a motion if anybody's ready.
I move the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve option B, the alternative schools progress model, as the accountability model for the Career Academy for the 22-23 school year.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you much.
Thank you so much.
Ernie Socia, I just talked to you, but now we're going to talk about state-funded teacher supplements, PRC 071.
Yes, sir. We like talking about supplements.
Yeah.
This is part of the Appropriations Act for this year. The state appropriated a section of money that was dedicated to supplements for teachers and instructional support. And very recently, they have determined the allotment that would be received by each county, and our allotment is about $800,000. And the parameters around it are that local boards of education have to make the determination of who will receive and how the money is distributed to the teachers. So what we're presenting to you tonight is the plan that we would put into place to distribute the funds in June to our teachers and instructional support personnel. We would be using the same definition that the state has provided in the past for us for those positions. I will point out there is one difference in that, is that they do specifically and very publicly have called out pre-K teachers are not eligible because of a technicality in the way the law was written. It was K-12. So
And teachers' assistants?
same as before. They are paid out of different budget codes. To determine the amount that they will receive, we will just take the allotment and we would then divide that out over the eligible individuals. We would propose 2 different levels of pay for full-time employees, that they would get the full amount, which based on our original estimate of the number of people that would receive it, would be about $600 for those, and those that are part-time that they would receive $300.
And then we're paying FICA retirement.
Yes, sir, and that is factored into the math to determine what the supplement would be, so that there's no additional cost locally to this. This allotment will cover the full amount. And the reason, if you will, that this is a little vague, if you want to call it that, is because this is a recurring allotment. This is scheduled to be coming back next year, but we don't know how much it will be. So we can't put specific dollars in play. We just have to put the framework in there, and then we would next year bring it to you with the actual amount that it would be next year as well.
I'm sorry, I want to try to answer your question. You're probably going to ask think about, so who is eligible? Certified teaching staff. That's it. Not assistant principals, not principals, not district staff, not instructional assistants, not bus drivers, not custodians, not child nutrition workers. What we're presenting to this board, because as Mr. Socia said perfectly, if you look at that first paragraph, you have to adopt what the distribution plan is. And we're saying, our recommendation is that it's every employee who is eligible. So that is our certified teaching staff. Boards could make it more narrow. You could say, we just want to pay ninth grade math teachers, and we want to give them $800,000.
Oh, that would go over well.
I'm certain that it would. You could make the group more narrow. Our recommendation is you pay every single person who is eligible in the category of eligibility, and it's essentially half of our workforce. The other half does not meet the definition of certified instructional support personnel. And the only distinction that we've made that you see in the supplement amount that Mr. Socia said is we see a distinct difference between full-time and part-time. If you are a full-time employee, you receive the full supplement. If you're a part-time employee, you receive the part-time supplement. And then that's divided equally among all the eligible employees of the amount that's there. This is one of the challenges of the way the state budget was approved, because they said we're going to create rules and stipulations for all of these various dollar amounts. And so that's the supplement amount. And just to kind of maybe steal the thunder, and Mr. Socia is going to correct me if I'm wrong, is if the board said, well, how much would it cost us to pay every employee this amount? Because again, this is about half of our employee group. It would cost us about $800,000 out of local to pay. And right now, we're only using the total amount, and then it would be paid in June. Is that accurate, Mr. Socia?
Sir.
Okay.
So these funds came from the Appropriations Act of 2021, correct?
Yes.
Why are they now being distributed when other supplemental funds were distributed earlier?
The best I can come up with from DPI saying is they just got around to it. They were dealing with the ones that were required to be distributed earlier in the year.
Yeah.
This one did not have a January requirement, so they did all the others first, and then they addressed doing the calculation to determine the appropriations for each district, and that's where they are now. So then they got these to us this past month.
And they said, here's $800,000. You have to pay certified teachers. We don't care how you pay them or which ones you pay them. You just have to pay certified teachers, and that's it.
Yes.
Did they say it had to be teachers, or we can, as long as we can squish it in, we got the rules, but we can't expand it like to the vice principals who've been slapped every time?
Correct. Teachers and certified teachers and instructional support personnel as they have deemed the category of.
Who are the instructional support personnel? Refresh my memory. Classification employees. Is that like media centers?
Yeah, it's anyone who's paid as a certified individual.
Okay. Is it state-funded certified?
Any funding source will apply here. We have taken anyone who fits that category, and this can be applied to them.
So could you remind me, how did you refer to assistants as what kind of assistants?
Instructional assistants.
Oh, so they kind of, they're not making copies and doing bulletin boards?
They're teaching.
Oh, they're teaching our kids, but they don't get this money. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is the second time it's been ridiculous.
That's correct. And I think, again, making sure that the public understands and our employees understand, this is not a discretionary decision.
Right.
Mr. Craven said it best. The state said, here's $800,000. You have to pay certified individuals. You get to decide if you wanted to make the pool narrower. We, of course, said, no, we pay. If you're eligible, you should be eligible. And the only distinguishing factor, as I said before, is we make a difference between full-time and part-time. And that this would be paid in our June paychecks, correct?
I guess the state wants to incentivize teachers to get certified.
Yes, sir. Our teaching staff is certified, right. But they have certainly, if you talk about the bonuses that have been paid out at the state level, teachers have received the bulk of all of the bonuses that were approved in the budget. So, which is great. You know, we believe teachers are deserving of that. It just creates disparity between all the other individuals that are importantly, you know, a part of that process. Yes, sir.
Well, thank you, State of North Carolina.
And Mr. Rhodes, are you going to do a great little video that describes this to the teachers and all the staff so that they know?
Yes, ma'am. The plan, excuse me, the plan is to make sure that we've got clear communication to our staff so that they understand that this is not a local decision, but this yet again is a state decision.
Thank you.
All right. Would anybody like to
No.
knock down this motion?
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the administrative process for distributing PRC 071 supplemental funds as presented.
Is there a second? I'll second it. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, it's approved. I kind of like how that was written, the administrative process.
Credit Mr. Socia for that.
Yeah. All right, where are we at? Audit contract 21-22 fiscal year. Mr. Socia.
Yes, sir. You may recall Mr. Anderson was here last month presenting the audit report, and what we present for you this evening is a contract to continue our arrangement with them for the fiscal year ended 2021-2022 to audit our financial records for that year. And they've been doing this for us for a number of years and have provided excellent service. I certainly support this decision that we continue to do so. Their prices have remained consistent. They have not increased longer than I've been here.
Did they go down, actually?
There was a couple of years ago that they had, the General Assembly required them to do an additional piece of an audit.
It was 30 grand, I remember a couple years ago.
And it is 30. It's broken into two different
broken.
components.
I noticed that.
That's what I see, yes. You're looking at there's the preparation of the financial reports, which is a
Gotcha.
secondary line in there, totaling 30,000.
Yeah, I mean, they do an awesome job. It doesn't get any better.
So at some point in our board policy, there was a number of years, a maximum number of years that an auditor could have the contract before we opened it back up. Has that been changed?
I'm not certain, but I'll double check that because when we adopted the new NCSBA
Right,
policy
that could have
manual,
changed.
I think that language did change, but we'll double check that just to make sure.
It is required that we do the contract and recommended that periodically there is a process that could be adopted as well. But we'll check for sure on the timeline.
Any other questions for Mr. Socia on this audit contract? Everybody good with it? All right, I'll take a motion.
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the contract to audit accounts between the Henderson County Board of Public Education and Carlin and Anderson Incorporation for the period beginning July
Change that. 2021.
2021 and ending 2022, June 30th, 2022. Sorry, that was a lot for my.
July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Wait, is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, because it's always.
All right, we have a second, always a year prior.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Yeah, so wait, what? Okay, Bernie Socia contracts in excess of $90,000.
Okay. Yeah, as part of board policy 6420, board is required to be presented with to approve any contracts over $90,000. We have two to present to you this evening. The first one is Dunlap Construction. They have been selected through a bid process to do the stadium work at East Henderson for accessibility on the home side. And to do that, we have actually received an athletic facilities grant, which will cover $129,000 of the contract of $141,000. That we currently have sent the design work to Raleigh for DPI's approval of the design. Following that approval, then we would be able to enter into the contract with Dunlap to get this work done. It was, go ahead.
And we'd be on the hook for 13K, that's
Yes,
it?
yes, sir.
That's pretty good.
What was appropriated for it?
Oh,
More than 13,000, right?
yes. Do you remember how?
125,000? I remember.
125, yeah.
It's rhetorical, sorry. Oh, well, that's pretty awesome.
That might be nice moving some of the, would we have funds then to move some of the ball fields up, or?
It would provide flexibility.
Let's get this
Provide
approved. Let's get this
flexibility.
approved by
Yeah.
the state first,
Yeah, because we couldn't do anything until we
and then
actually had that.
bring that back to us and we'll.
That would be great.
Yes.
Awesome. Do you need these approved individually or separate? I mean,
We'll do them together at the end if you're
Okay.
good with that. The second contract is with CESMG LLC, which if you scroll down, it's on page 11 is where that one begins.
When I was looking through this earlier, there's a date discrepancy on, it's the very first page of that contract, the second one down where it says June 3rd, and then it says 202. It needs another 2. You see, it's that final bullet point on the first page of the second contract.
there's some date problems today.
I know.
Page 11.
We will get them to, we'll get that revised.
I don't know if it makes a difference, but,
No, that actually won't.
okay.
This one, I do remember the amount that was appropriated. This was $130,000 appropriated for each of these two projects. The bids for these both coming in at $109,000 for the actual construction work.
Nice.
Wow.
Any other questions? Nope. All right, I will take a motion. When someone's ready, get a scroll.
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the attached contract with the specified vendors.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's approved. All right, next, this one's my favorite every year.
I have to
Lottery
say
application,
this again
please.
for Dr. Bryant before he leaves, yes,
It used to be Miss Mary Louise Corn.
yes. But I will do that when the time is appropriate.
Well, the lottery application needs no introduction, other than to give you the dollar amount, that it is $347,276.65. That, as shown on the next page, is the available amount of funds with the lottery system in Raleigh to go to pay for the debt service on Hillendale and Mills River Elementary Schools. This is the quarterly distribution, already approved and signed by the county commissioners.
So this
Holt?
money, this lottery money, when somebody buys a lottery ticket, 100% of those proceeds goes right to the schools, am I correct?
What percentage of a $20 lottery ticket?
This is more like 30-40%, depending on if you want to include the scholarships that are addition to just the capital.
You got to think about it. Some of it is payout. They have to pay, somebody, like one or two people actually win those things. A lot of it goes to marketing is what I saw. 10 to 15% goes to marketing that they spend the money on. And then, although they have the big, huge sign on there, we get less than a third of the actual proceeds from you.
Yes, and you're correct. That is the proceeds. That is after the payouts have all been
That's
made.
the
That is
proceeds,
just
so that's the net.
Yes.
Net.
Yes, it is the net. Yes, sir.
It's deceiving the way they market it.
All right, there's nothing we can do about it. So, I'll take a motion.
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the Public School Building Capital Fund North Carolina Education Lottery application.
Take a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is approved.
Thank you very much.
Next, wow, okay. Board Superintendent reports, ESSER update.
Yes, sir. And again, a slide deck.
That's why I said, wow, it's 5:30. I'm
I
sorry.
know, you guys are doing
That
well.
freaked me
That's
out a
it.
little bit. Like, wait a minute.
I'm very proud of us. Let's continue this train.
The sun is still up.
Keep this train rolling. Really, this slide again is the promise that we made to the board about continuing to keep you updated on the elements associated with the costs of each of the initiatives that the board has endorsed. Whoops, I went a little too far ahead. So now you're looking at April through the April payroll. So note the top line hasn't changed because that was summer learning of the past year. The second line hasn't changed because the retention bonuses were paid out in February. But bus driver recruitment, you see that dollar figure going up. You see substitute teacher recruitment bonus, that dollar line going up. In the final slide here, again, seeing the same thing. What we've committed to is making sure that we have class coverage and extra employment payment, and so that class coverage line has nearly doubled. And we will continue to share with this board what those costs are. Remembering again, the majority of the positions and the initiatives that you see listed here were incentives that were budgeted and committed through the rest of this fiscal year. And the board will ultimately have the ability to say, okay, are these worth continuing to do moving forward as we continue to talk about how we support? The reminder that I like to give is that each of these dollars and the pool of dollars has an expiration date. We've talked about those expiration date. The last one is in September of 2024. And so the board will have the dollars available to them to continue to address specific priorities based on the needs of the school system moving forward. And these two slides just help you understand what the continuing costs are of the things that you've budgeted. Glad to answer any questions.
I have a question. Where in here do we have allocated the money that we were funding teachers to cover other teachers' classes?
Next to the last line on this slide.
Planning period and tutoring.
Yes.
Planning, oh, okay, I see right here.
Yes, ma'am.
I recently had a teacher that told me that they were out of funds and they could no longer be, for like a month now, they could no longer be paid to do that.
That's not accurate, no. I would ask you to have that teacher reach out to us because that has not been communicated internally because we set no cap on that other than our budget number of $790, and that was for the remainder of this fiscal year, which you can see we've not even come close to.
That's what I thought.
So what I do know is every once in a while I'll get a question about class coverage for something that isn't what I call substitute related. Let me just give you an example. Somebody asked me a question of when a coach has to leave to a ball game early and I cover that class, do I get paid? That was not the intent or the narrative of these funds. That was a condition we experienced and certainly is not in response to COVID or as a result of COVID, as these funds federally are required to. We all recognize those of us that were teachers. We used to cover for classes for non-COVID reasons all the time. So these funds were designated and approved and can only be used for the intended purpose, which is when we cannot find a substitute or there's not someone to cover the class because of a staffing shortage and we pull somebody else to do that, we pay them to do it. So there have been a couple of those kind of one-offs, but I would certainly ask whomever reached out to you on that respect to reach out to Human Resources because we have not communicated once that the funds have expired.
Okay.
Great question.
And then I have something else, and I know you guys are sick of hearing me talk about this, but I recently received an email from Western Carolina University about a needs assessment that they conducted dealing with mental health. And I just wanted to, and I know I've said it, but I just want to publicly highlight this stuff.
This is from the graduate students, correct?
Yes, did you guys all get it? I mean, did you see like in 2018, 13 students without a home, 2021, 23. This one's huge. 2018, 397 children cases for abuse and neglect. They went from 397 to 641 cases, so it's almost doubled. And it's showing 183 children in 2021 were victims of sexual assault. 90 of those cases were relative, acquaintance, perpetrators. It talks about short-term suspensions. I don't know that that's applicable. I just saw a huge jump in, especially when you talk about the abuse and neglect, going from almost 400 to almost 650. We need to be using our ESSER money, and I know that there's a shortage of counselors and therapists and social workers, but our kids need it hugely. I think this is the most important thing we do for them.
Yes, ma'am. And just to kind of prelude that piece of it, we all know that there was arguably a mental health crisis before the pandemic, and we were just seeing the amplification of that. As you talk about that with the data and the research, there was even a segment on 60 Minutes last night that spent a lot of time talking about that. I think you're exactly right. When you talk about how these resources can be leveraged, you're potentially talking about contracting in the same way that we have with some of our trusted partners to provide dedicated behavioral health and mental health supports within the school system. Not separate from, but within. And I think these dollars do present the real opportunity to do that. A recent conversation we had with the leadership of the health department and the school system talked about that very type of initiative, where it says, we have received tremendous, I'll use Crossnor as an example, tremendous partnership with an organization that says we can provide direct support services via referral for you exclusively. And behavioral health and mental health supports are going to be very much and already are on the forefront in that respect. And these dollars would be the type of thing that would enable you to do that. And so I applaud you for bringing that to light, because that is very much what we're talking about with these resources.
Why have we had no expenditures in the additional social worker positions?
I want to say, I was going to say Matt stepped out, but I want to say we can speak to that. Mr. Socia, you have the answer to that one?
Haven't been hired, maybe? I don't know.
Yes, it's been a challenge filling the vacancy.
I think they've had a hard time filling the ones that either left or that we were filling before we added these extra ones, to be quite honest.
And I know we keep hearing from groups of parents, you need to teach English, math, social studies, don't be worrying about my child's mental health, social, emotional. But, these kids are in mental health crisis, and if we can provide families with social workers that kind of help bridge some of those issues, because I've talked to parents who they've tried to take their child to a psychologist or a therapist out of school, and they cannot get an appointment with anybody. So, I think it's huge that we keep trying.
Any other questions on ESSER funding? All right, construction update, Mr. Carl Taylor.
Good evening, board members. Hope you're having a great day. As we look at our construction update for this month, we once again will begin with Hendersonville High School. At our last month's board meeting, we showed pictures of the auditorium space, but outside, this part had not been completed yet. And so if you remember, pre-construction there, I believe there were 5 doors that entered into that auditorium space. For those 3 center doors, they have been filled in with brick, and then you can see the HHS logo has been inserted into the brick as well. And so if you drive by, you can see that addition now as well.
That looks better than fake doors we're going to look with, right?
It looks amazing.
I agree. It does look nice.
Yeah,
Also,
one more time, Matthew. It's fine.
that was me. I thought you were going to
that
talk
was
a little
you.
longer
Okay.
about how beautiful it is.
It
I just
looks
didn't
awesome.
give you that
man.
time.
It looks really, really good.
Then you stopped. So, also at the last board meeting, I talked about how the progression inside Stillwell is that the 3rd floor is the one that's farthest along, and then it kind of works its way down. Now on the 3rd floor, that space has really been turned over to our maintenance department, to where they are inside the classrooms waxing those floors. Our maintenance department is in there keying the doors as well. And so as they finish that work, hopefully they're just going to be able to make their way down to the 2nd floor, as Vinoy then really focuses on finishing up that 1st floor. Also, last week, this is a picture from underneath the press box, but looking at it from Stillwell and the new building in that green space that will be there as well. And so this is rock work that is being completed there. It may be completed today since this photo is from last week. But those rocks that are being used there underneath the press box come from that old gym that was taken down. So being able to repurpose those rocks and still keep them as a part of the campus.
I think Eric Gash built that old gym. No, you did the weight room.
Then stadium photos. Again, these photos are from middle of last week. And if you drive by today, as I did, that space looks very different than these photos. A lot of the graphic work is laid out and being completed on the field. And also paving has started taking place on the track as well. And so a lot of progression taking place within that space.
Before you get done with that, can you get some pictures before the next board meeting of the bathrooms on both visitor and home bleacher side for us?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Then as we just do a quick overview of all the other projects that have been going on here recently.
Sorry, before you go on,
Yes.
we're still,
Speaker.
I thought I hit that button, sorry. But we're still on budget
And on time.
and on time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Under budget, actually.
Even better.
So since you brought up the bathrooms there, how does administration handle that when there is somebody that's handicapped and they're there to see their child play? I remember when my oldest played, there was a handicapped mom that came in to watch the games. Do they just have to notify admin every time they have to go to the bathroom and then they take them around and in?
Yes, it's always about finding the solution. And so each space would be a little bit different on our campuses. And so at Hendersonville High School, it would just be finding the solution that gets that person to the facilities that they need. It's meeting that need when it arises.
We're spending $88 that we're getting from federal grants at East, correct, to help fix that. Are there grants that are available to help fix the bathroom so that they are, I know the men's bathroom, it would be an extreme challenge for someone in a wheelchair to actually get into. Are there any dollars available for that?
Henderson County, of course, wasn't eligible for any of the needs-based grants that
Sure.
the state had.
We're
because
Tier 1.
We're a Tier 3 county,
Tier
so
3.
they look at us in that different way. But to Mr. Taylor's point, if you go back to our capital project, we're allocating dollars specifically for ADA issues. And to your question, much of that allocation is a requirement to have appropriate signage to guide people to the nearest ADA accessible bathroom. So sometimes in the stadium, that means you have to go into the building or you have to go around. And in this particular stadium, we know that they're not compliant. And so we can put together some information about what eligibility exists or the opportunity, because that's true in all of our campuses across the board, is having to make sure that we accommodate those needs, as Mr. Taylor said, whenever they're presented to us. And one of the requirements is that you have appropriate signage present that guides somebody to that space.
So is this the only facility that doesn't have handicapped restrooms? Or do all, like, do West, North, and East, do they have handicapped restrooms? Like, I know they're in the school, but out at the athletic fields.
I'm not prepared to answer that question, but we can come back to you with an answer on that. I wouldn't want to speak out of turn on that.
Okay,
but
because
we'll
I
let
think we need to look at all of them. Just,
Well,
it's
one
kind
of
of
the
painful that we're
examples we
doing.
get is our stadiums are one area, but you have to think about, like, our athletic fields encompass a lot of areas. When you think
True.
about baseball fields, softball fields, tennis courts, and the like, many of them don't even have restroom facilities at all. You always have to articulate back to the building. So our stadiums are kind of one answer to the question, and then the rest of the extracurricular activity fields are an answer differently. But we'll be glad to come back to the board with that.
Okay.
So again, moving on to other projects that are going on currently. Paving and roof replacement across some of our campuses will begin this month. The auditorium seating at Apple Valley North and in here in the boardroom, those are pretty much complete at this point in time. There's still some finishing touches that need to be finished at both of those schools as well as in this space. But in terms of the seating itself, pretty much finished at all three sites. For our warehouse there at the maintenance facility, we're still waiting on that metal building to be delivered and then put up as well. For our video management in our middle schools and high schools, pretty much at this point in time, all of the wiring has been pulled at all of our locations. And so the next step will just be waiting on all of the cameras to arrive so that Haynes can begin installing those cameras as well. Then East and West auditoriums, that contract was presented to you this evening for the sound and lighting upgrades at both of those places. And then the last one, the stadium ADA, again, that is something that Mr. Sosha presented there for the East Henderson home side to become ADA compliant. So I welcome any other questions you may have at this time.
Questions?
You go back to your metal building at the warehouse.
Yes, sir.
I heard that metal buildings are sort of hard to come by right now. Is it back ordered, or do you have any idea when it could come in?
It has taken some time to come in, but my understanding is that hopefully this month is when they hope that it will arrive.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Dr. Wendy Fry, Equity Update.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to bring the equity update to you tonight around the topic of MTSS. First of all, I want to start out by telling you what it is. So, and I started to ask Matthew to flip the slide, and here I have the power in my hand. It's like, come on, Matthew. So, multi-tiered system of supports. I have to tell you that this is research-based, and it is about the whole student. It is multi-tiered, as I'll show you examples of in just a few minutes, and it is team-based problem solving based on data. And the goal is to get students to be college and career ready. Also, something that I want to share with you is it grew out of two different programs that you may be familiar with. So, response to intervention and positive behavior supports were two programs that we used in our schools to address student needs. And MTSS was an outgrowth of the combination of those programs. We were required to implement MTSS by school year 2020. We began implementing MTSS in school year 2017-18. Because of ESSER funds, we have greatly expanded our services in this area, and I'll tell you more about that in just a few minutes. It's a team of educators. The pictures that I'll share with you today are actual teams of teachers at the schools working together on behalf of students. I want to show you the tiers that I was referencing previously. So first of all, Tier 1, this is for all students. You've heard us talk about instructional rounds. The instructional services team visits schools and gives administrators and teachers feedback on those high-yield instructional strategies that we see implemented. We praise the positive and talk about all those ways that we see those being used. That is Tier 1. That's universal instruction for all students. Then we have Tiers 2 and 3. And if I may, use Mr. Egoff as an example, the work that he does with students when we were able to visit Clear Creek, when he works with those small groups of students to provide that extra layer of support, that would be classified as a Tier 2 support. And then Tier 3 is a more targeted intensive intervention. As I mentioned earlier, teams of teachers meet frequently to discuss students and what would best serve their needs. Now, obviously, this was a staged picture by a couple of our staff at Edneyville Elementary, but they did want us to share with you that they all bring their different perspectives and expertise to the table when they're discussing how to best serve our students. Teachers are strongly advocating, not this strongly, but they are strongly advocating, not always agreeing, but always coming to consensus on what is best and to serve our students' needs. In this example, this is one of our school psychologists and one of our teachers. who serve as part of an MTSS school team. The visuals you see here illustrate the layering of support to address the whole child. So where are we now? So our district work now is focused on adding those support strategies to address the areas. So if a school team determines that there are issues in particular academic areas or attendance, behavior, social, academic, we are working now to build those systems of the support, those toolkits, so that there are different strategies teams can pull from and recommend to use in serving our students.
Would that, the attendance part go, I think it was Dana that we were at before, and they were talking about the way that they tackle attendance and try to get more kids there. It's like positive, whatever, when they come so many days. Okay.
That is exactly what that is. Thank
Okay.
you. Yes, that is exactly. Incentivizing student attendance. So I tell you all that to say, as we're talking about ways that we can best use our ESSER funds, one of the ways that we have been able to use ESSER is by adding a director of student achievement. And I'm pleased to introduce and recognize, most of you already know Dr. Marcy Wilson, who has served in this role. So as I mentioned, the state required that we implement and embrace MTSS by school year 2020. Well, we started down that road in school year 2017-18. But what Dr. Wilson's position has brought to us, and Dr. Wilson, I'd like for you to come on up here and help me answer any questions that they may have also. But what her leadership has brought to this initiative is a district point person to attend meetings, to create professional development opportunities, to talk with MTSS team leaders, to suggest strategies, and to create an accountability and a process like we have never had before. This has been a most effective use of ESSER funds, and I can't imagine doing this work and continuing it to the level that we have without Dr. Wilson's position. So thank you for your support of that. So where we're going, we will have summer work sessions, as I mentioned earlier, to add to those resource banks of strategies that teams can pull from. There will be a beginning of the year training for these teams focused on trauma-informed schools, as you were mentioning earlier, Ms. Holt, and again, updating those resources. And then you see our goal here, as I mentioned at the onset of this presentation. We are working to create college, career, and community readiness for all of our students. You know, the equity update is always about removing barriers, and this seeks to remove barriers for all of our students. Yes, be happy to answer. Dr. Wilson, be happy to answer any questions that you have at this time. Both of us would be happy to, and appreciate your support.
I have a quick question. So who's identifying the students? Is this teacher referral, principal referral?
And yes.
Yes and yes, okay.
Yes, we use a system of early warning indicators, which include literacy, mathematics, attendance. It's a partnership between social workers, school counselors, teachers, and administrators that identify students that might need Tier 2 and Tier 3 level supports.
Is there any type of follow-up during the summer? Because we know it happens at the end of the year and then
Yes.
a gap.
We will do an end-of-the-year update for every student that is on a Tier 2 or Tier 3 plan. At the end of the year, the teams will meet and assess what they need. If they attend summer learning, or most of the time they do, then those supports will be included in their summer learning program.
Thank you.
Dr. Wilson, who is the, usually the school chair, I guess is what you guys call it?
Usually a school administrator, or in coordination with a counselor, psychologist. It depends on the school. Some schools, through our Title I funds, are able to hire an MTSS interventionist. That is mainly at the elementary level, and those positions support the paperwork process, as well as support providing interventions and working with teachers to ensure that supports are provided for students.
Nice.
And it's very data-driven, correct? Yes, ma'am. And you're doing those interim assessments as children to make sure your interventions are doing what you set out to do.
Once the intervention is put into place, then there is some progress monitoring. We use research-based assessments to determine if the student is making progress using that intervention, and then the team decides, are they making adequate progress based on those levels that the research supports, or do we need to change the intervention to provide supports that will work?
It's a lot of hard work.
It's a lot of hard work, and it is some of our most important work.
It is.
And we are so very fortunate to have Dr. Wilson in that role, somebody of her expertise in leadership and working with folks and being able to really help lead that work with some vision and purpose. And as you said, it is extremely complicated when it comes down to making sure you're navigating those individual instructional decisions for every student in order that they progress in the ways that we want. And we're very, very grateful. As Dr. Fry said, I can't imagine not having her lead the work. It's such a comfort to know that that's the work that she's been doing. So we're in a very good space. We appreciate the board's support of the role in order that that work.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Child care update, Mr. Scott Rhodes.
Thank you, board. Just want to go quickly, give a child care update for the financial projections for the month of April. The revenues were $104,701 with the expenses of $72,091.38 for an operational profit of $32,609.62. Do want to just give you a little quick update based off of last month where we talked to you about the federal grant money that we're getting for our child care program. We met, Mr. Socia and I had an opportunity to meet with Carlene Dixon. She's the Henderson County Parks and Rec Director. She has extensive knowledge about playgrounds. They are right now in the process of putting in a new playground at Jackson Park. So we had an opportunity to meet with her last week. We are trying to gain as much knowledge as we can as we begin to game plan how we are going to tackle 13 different playgrounds and upgrading each one of those. And so we've got a lot that we've learned last week, and we are working on that plan, and I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Did she give you a ballpark? I know it depends on what we
How
do.
much theirs is costing?
No.
It's like 600, isn't it?
Oh, my goodness.
I don't know the exact number for them. The good news for us is we've got existing playgrounds that we're looking to upgrade except one. Upward Elementary it looks like we're going to have a complete redo of their playground. One of the things that we're finding that we've got to work through is that, again, these are federal dollars, and we're working to go through co-op programs that will give us some flexibility, again, on pricing, because those co-ops bring in large resources. But we also recognize these federal dollars, we have some guidelines, and I think, and Mr. Socia, you correct me if I'm wrong, the number is $250,000. So anything that we're looking at spending over $250,000, then we may have to put out to bid. And so we are working on getting all the information we can, again, as we start thinking about what that game plan is going to look like. Again, getting all that information is just taking us time, and our goal is obviously to do this first class and to get it right.
Okay, when you say you have a 32,000 profit, is that just for 1 month, or is that cumulative?
That's just for this month.
For this month. So you're thinking about taking this profit that you've been earning every year, and nice job in turning that around, and you did it very quickly, by the way. But in taking this profit, instead of, I know that our child care program is going to use these playgrounds, but it's not directly funneled back into just for child care. And you feel like that you have met the needs of the child care program adequately in order to then take this money and look at it in doing a more school-wide project?
So those are some great questions, Dr. Rhodes. What I would say to you is that we've made sure that we've included our 2 directors in our child care program and making sure that they have buy-in to what we're trying to accomplish. You know, these playgrounds are something that they use, as much as possible.
And if they're licensed, they have to follow different guidelines.
Yes, ma'am. And so those different guidelines, that's why Upward hasn't been able to be used for 15 plus years, because they don't meet those guidelines. And so we're wanting to make sure that we get all those playgrounds evaluated. And that's our first step, because we want to make sure that there's nothing that we're going to miss before we get ready to make a plan of action. So we get people to come out and help design those.
But we also recognize we're talking about $4.2 million. And so, we've helped, they were able to purchase a van, for a cargo van for them to be able to get materials instead of using their own personal vehicles. Just materials, everything that they need right now, they have an opportunity to be able to buy and to purchase, not just to meet the needs short-term, but also long-term for our child care program. And so when we start thinking about the profits that we have right now, although we're excited about that, we still recognize that we've got a $15 an hour increase is what's going to happen in July. And so our goal is to make sure that we are going to provide every one of our parents a fair opportunity at pricing. And that's why we came back to you last month, because we want to keep that consistent for a year. We recognize we had the flexibility to do that. But the one thing we want to avoid ever being put back in a situation where that child care program is ever at risk again. And so our long-term goal is to make sure there's a plan of stability that outlasts everyone in this room.
Mr. Rhodes, I think Dr. Revis's question is such an important one. The slide illustrates the operational profit, not the grant dollars that are in addition to that for the playground investment. So while the program has been making $30,000, $40,000 a month, those are in addition to the $4 million that we've received as grant-funded dollars, correct?
Yes, sir.
So there's no additional funds inside of those revenues? Besides the payments from DSS or from parents that are paying for childcare, there's no other monies inside of your revenue figures?
That's correct. And again, I go back to what we brought to the board last month. Our goal is to have 9 months of operational expenses. So we have created a fund balance, again, as we think about long-term stability of our child care program. And again, as anything over and above, will create flexibility for this board.
Good.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Rhodes.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Bernie Sosha, just your financial reports.
Financial, yes, sir. I'll finish up with the child care, but I'm going to start with local current expense and other restricted funds through April 30th, 2022. Our revenues are now up to $32,065,000, and our expenditures that we've made so far this year are $23,436,000. We now have all of our county appropriation. So we have 97% of the budgeted revenue for the year has already been received. We will get a little bit more in ABC revenues, fines and forfeitures, and some Medicaid reimbursements that will come throughout the rest of the year. As we look at our expenditures, we are up $2.5 million over last year, primarily because we have had normal operations. And as we look to see where those increases have been from last year, it's in exactly those areas. It's in instructional services and it's in operational support services. That's the difference from last year to this year. As budgetarily, we are on budget for the current year. The other report there for you, for the enterprise fund, our child nutrition program, our revenues now total $6,821,000 and expenditures at $6,014,000 for a net gain for the year of $806,000. And this third quarter, the change is just $37,000 since the end of the second quarter. So we're operating on a very even level. And the third quarter is also reflective of the change to the salary schedules up to $13 an hour, as well as the retro pay for the first half of the year. So even with all of that happening in the third quarter, we still had an increase of $37,000. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, both of these we're definitely going to have to watch. I think childcare is one where you can go down and scroll to the bottom and you can look at your revenues that are sitting there. You have other state allocations and federal sources where those aren't going to be there forever, right? So you have to lean on your tuition and fees, which is your $1,098 or $1,098, or whatever interest you're receiving, and then you back out all of your expenses for the year, and you get about a $200,000 net profit so far. So that's awesome. But the one that really is going to start scaring me is child nutrition. So if the federal government doesn't decide to continue to feed every single child, starting next year, right? September.
Starting next year, and I can speak to that.
We can be in trouble quickly, correct?
Correct. And while there has been no indication that the USDA is going to extend the free meal service that we've been able to provide for the last 2 years, we will be presenting to you what that will look like moving forward, at least for the next year, from a meal price perspective, because we have not raised prices in about 6 years.
Yeah, I mean, because you can look at the local source sales, you know, $300,000. Now, I know that's a misleading number because nobody's buying their lunches. But you can look at the salaries and benefits and what we've done year over year. We've spent, what is that correct, $2 million more?
Sure, our
For the budget?
salary and benefits in the last couple of years have gone up over 40%. Food costs have gone up 30 to
Huge
40%.
number.
So the meal costs, that's, not to get a month ahead of ourselves, but we will be addressing that next month for you guys to be able to see what that would look like moving into next year.
Yeah, because those numbers are a lot bigger than childcare. A lot bigger.
Yes, sir.
Did you have something? Any other questions on that? General operations, Dr. Bryant.
Thank you, Mr. Craven and members of the board. General operations are really just a reminder that May is a busy month, and it's a busy month for all the right reasons and all the exciting reasons leading into June graduations and the end of the traditional and flex calendar school years. Ultimately, this is a time when we get to celebrate not just our students, but we get to celebrate our staff, we get to celebrate our school system, and talk about all the extraordinary things that are happening in Henderson County Public Schools. Thank you to each of you who were able to join us for the education celebration, to Mrs. Case's induction into the Hall of Fame. That's exactly right. She is a Hall of Famer now and has to be referred to as such every time we talk to her. She gets to write HOF after her name every time she signs it on a check. That's exactly right.
Just means old.
No, not at all. Not at all. That is, listen, that is rare air to be on the wall here in the central office. And those men and women, again, represent the foundations and really the future of the school system, and we're appreciative to you in that respect. You see a couple of reminders here. Our Teacher of the Year luncheon, be reminded, we've recognized our Teachers of the Year on a number of occasions, but they recently sat down with a panel of folks from our school system, and we'll be recognizing the Henderson County Teacher of the Year later this month. We'll be celebrating our retirees, talking to our top scholars. That event on the 26th is pretty exciting. That's the top 15 students at each of our schools. And then, of course, we have our graduation ceremonies listed there for you as well. So we are so proud of our students. We're so proud of our staff. It is hard to believe that we are in May right now, and we are less than 1 month away from our students' graduation and the completion of the school year. But it's an especially exciting time to celebrate our students and our school system. So look forward to seeing you at many of those events.
For sure.
Yes, sir. That's all I have.
Anything else for anybody? All right. I will accept a motion to recess this meeting until 9:30 a.m. tomorrow morning at the Henderson County Community Foundation, located at 401 North Main Street, Suite 300, Hendersonville, North Carolina, for the sole purpose of conducting a closed session for personnel matters. No action will be taken.
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are in recess till tomorrow morning. Thank you.